Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another episode of Justice for All Now. I'm your host, Hena Zuberi, and you're watching us on Muslim Network TV, North America's only Muslim-focused TV channel. You can watch us 24/7 on Roku TV, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and on the Muslim Network TV website, muslimnetwork.tv. Always mess that up. Today, I am going to be talking to you about a refugee camp in Europe, Europe's largest refugee camp. The Moria refugee camp was originally intended to hold 3,000 people. As recently as last June, there were 5,000 people there, according to Doctors Without Borders, the only major international NGO that has a presence there. According to the Guardian newspaper, in the last 6 months, that number has grown to a shanty town of 19,000 people, 40% of whom are under the age of 18. Think about that. That gives me shudders down my spine. So many young people. Around 13,000 of those are living in filthy, unofficial camp of tents and makeshift huts made of pallets in an olive grove surrounding the main site. Now, we often talk about the refugee camps in Bangladesh, where the Rohingya are, and Bangladesh is a poor country, and we understand the conditions over there because there are not enough resources. But why? Let's find out more about why in the heart of Europe are refugees in such a bad state. There's no electricity, not enough water, and rivers of mud and rubbish flow through the tents. Today, I have with me Jawad Mir, my two guests. I'm really honored to have them here. Jawad loves to tell stories. The stories always come first with him. It's in his heart and his soul, and is the heart and soul of any film. While working on any project, that's what Jawad strives to do. He strives to tell a story. He's directed and produced several features all over the world, including A Search of My Sister, Citizens of Moria, the one that we'll be discussing today, Flipping Red, and Only 78. His films have been acquired by the production house Orchard and Samuel Goldwyn. With us today also is Ahmad. Sayyid Ahmad Zay Ibrahimi is a filmmaker from Afghanistan. He's worked as a TV producer and he's made short films and documentaries. He's had film working workshops for youth in different cities in Afghanistan and Tajikistan. And in 2016, he left Afghanistan to find a better future in Europe. We're really honored to have you here, Ahmed, to share your story. But before that, we're going to take a minute to watch a trailer of Citizens of Moria.
My name is Ahmad Ibrahimi. It's important for me to tell you this story. I have told you my name. That's the who of my story. The where of my story is a prison detention center.
Moria was built to house 750 people.
7,500 people in here.
10,000? 20,000 people.
It's the worst camp in Europe.
Conditions are appalling. There are around 70 people per toilet. The sewage system doesn't work properly.
If that camp was full of animals, there would be an outcry around the world.
In 2014, my friend and I made a documentary about Taliban, and they threatened to kill the production team.
از دستش ناراحت هستم زیاد به خاطر شکار اینجا به پدر نیاز دارم.
This tense situation is likely to become worse as Turkey has opened its border and is advising refugees on its soil to go to Europe.
Angry protesters on the Greek island of Lesbos tried to topple a police bus during a demonstration against an EU migration policy.
If they really, really don't want refugees, why don't they get together and solve the war? Because if they solve the war, you'll have 2 million refugees want to go home immediately because they don't want to be in fucking Europe.
A group of followers of the so-called Islamic State are spreading fear throughout the camp.
They take my passport.
If this situation is going to continue like this, we are going to face bigger, huge problems.
A pall of smoke hangs over Kabul.
I don't know what will happen.
پشت برم زیاد خوش. اگر امروز برم ببینم خوشحال میشم.
To both of you for being here, first of all, today. And let's talk about Citizen of Moria. Jawad, how did you get in touch with Ahmed? And can you share a little bit of your story?
Sure, Hena. Thank you for having us on your show. We appreciate it. Our story kind of dates back to sometime in summer of 2018. I was actually looking to tell a story of a gentleman. I'm not sure if he was really in news a lot. His name was Hassan Al-Kontar. He was stuck on Malaysian airport for about 6 months because he couldn't go back to Syria because he would get arrested by the Assad regime, and he couldn't go anywhere else. So I contacted him, and we kind of talked about doing some sort of a project. But he said, can you please talk to a lady named Laurie Cooper, who is who sort of helps with refugees in Canada. And it didn't really work out with his story, but Laurie introduced me to Ahmad. And we chatted over WhatsApp, and I found out that he's a filmmaker as well. And after that, after a few months, we met, and pretty much from there on, it was a journey to make this film and tell this Ahmad's story.
Ahmed, when you shared your who and your where, tell us why. Why are you in Moria?
Why I shared my story, or why I was in Moria? Sorry,
Go ahead, share both those whys.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for hosting us today. And as you will see, I hope, in the movie, it's already said about why I was in Moria. It was about because I cannot live in Afghanistan. My life was in danger, and I decided to come to Europe. And about the why we made this movie, it was about when Jawad Mir contacted me and asked me about if we can make a movie together. I see that the situation in Moria is very difficult, and it's very bad, and it's totally something that never should happen. It's in any place in the world, but mostly in Europe, because Europe should be like a very good place actually. But and also no one knows about this. That's why I decided to think about it, and I said yes, it's a good opportunity to tell this story, to tell my story, and also tell the story of these people who are living in such a situation.
So to situate our audience, many of them who may be in rural America and watching us, and who may not know what is happening there or where Moria is, could you tell us exactly the geographic location of this refugee camp?
Moria is a Greek island. It is between Greece and Turkey. I think it's in the northwest, south. West, yes, it's in the west of Greece, and it's between Turkey and Europe. I think it's around 11 kilometers far from Turkey. I think so, because when we was crossing the water, it was around, we were around 1 hour in the water, but like it was lucky of us. The other people, they were in the water for like 6-7 years hours during the night. And yeah, I think it's about 7-8 kilometers far from Turkey.
Just to add to that, so the place Moria is a small village of a bigger place called Mytilene,
Yes.
which is a part of a Lesbos island, which is a very hot tourist spot. So tourists from all over and it is very, very beautiful. Like the tourist area is absolutely gorgeous. And that's where, when in 2015, the mass exodus of refugees that came, they came to that part where tourism was really, really high. So it's like a very starking contrast of, you know, the tourism and people coming for like vacation while others were coming for a better life, and then they ended up being in this complete hellhole of a former military prison, essentially.
Oh, interesting. So, and it was originally intended to hold a certain amount of people.
Yeah. So in 2015 or 2014, it was built. It was already built, but it was originally to hold 700 people. Then over the number of years, it went to 10,000. Then up until last year, late 2019, it went to 22,000. And then, you know, a lot of things kind of went wrong after that. Moria camp sort of, you know, came under fire. Like it was burnt. And now there's a Moria 2.0, which they call, which is right by the water and on mud. Like at least the first one was on concrete, and, you know, there was some sort of facilities, washrooms and all that. This one has nothing. So now it's even worse than it was before.
And where are majority of the refugees from? Which countries are they from?
I think for now, the majority of them are from Afghanistan, and after is Syrian, and after like Iran and some African countries.
This is interesting for us, for me as an American, to listen to this, because the rhetoric here in our country here is that the war is over, you know, we're pulling our troops out, and why would anybody need to leave Afghanistan now? So can you share some of the reasons why there's so many Afghani refugees still coming in and leaving their homes?
Like I think in 2021, when America came to Afghanistan and they destroyed Taliban, let's say destroyed, we were in Iran at that time, and we decided to go back to our country to start our new life in our country. And after, during these years, the situation get worse and worse, and Taliban start making terrorist attacks and killing people. And the village that I'm from is they are exploding the street, and kidnapping people, throwing people. This all kind of things are happening for now. And also our government is also, they are not really good. They cannot control all this kind of stuff. And when you're leaving your home, you don't know if you're coming back or not. Like yesterday, we had 3 terrorist attacks in Kabul. And also like every month you have 4, 5, 10 sometimes terrorist attacks. There were terrorist attacks in the wedding, there were terrorist attacks in the school, there were terrorist attacks in the mosques, there were everywhere. Like you don't know where you should go and you will be safe. And it's very complicated situation. And also there are a lot of people who are threatened by Taliban, like journalism, like people who works with government, and like this. And also mostly in the last year when America make deal with Taliban, they stop killing American, and now they are pushing more to kill like Afghans. Yes.
And this is very important for those of us listening over here. And this is, your tax dollars have paid for this war, this 20-year-old war. For what? For what reason? So just, I would like my audience to engage in that and think about that. And think about how can we make sure that our tax dollars are not continuing to support wars around the world. Jawad, you met Ahmed. Tell me more about your creative process in making this. And
Sure.
first, let's start about from research. When you were researching the documentary, were there any preconceived notions that you had about what you would find? And
right.
Did you, what happened? Were they true? Did they hold true? Or
Sure. So the first thing that I remember reading was there was an article, which I'm sure is online somewhere still, from Al Jazeera, and it had very, very powerful photographs that did not look like Europe as we are sort of told that Europe is supposed to be like the West, right? Like we're not third. Europe is not a third world place, or Greece at least. So that completely sort of shocked me. How can a place in Europe be like that? And I think that's where most of the people, migrants or refugees or just average people, thought coming to Europe would be nothing like that. So having said that, when I got there and I met Ahmad and I went to the camp, and I say this to everybody who I have a conversation with, is the first thing that sort of struck me was the kids. These kids from 1 year, 2 year to ages 10, 12, 13, who were, despite living in horrendous situations, and majority of them came from very good life, just because of safety and war and all that, they fled. They were in their zone. They didn't care where they were. They were playing, with boxes, and they were playing cricket, or they're playing football or whatever. So that image of them not being unhappy of where they were sort of stuck with me. And I think another thing I realized very quickly was, which I didn't know going in, was there's the camp, but then there is the locals. So the locals sort of went through, in the beginning, the island of Lesbos was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, I think in 2015 or 2016. They really embraced the refugees, the migrants. They really helped out on, amazing way. But over time, what happened was, there's so much politics and bureaucracy. The European Union sort of abandoned Greece, and Greece is not like really a first world country, and it's kind of like second world, and their economy started shattering, and some people from the camp, they took law into their own hand. They start slaughtering goats of the villagers and stuff, and not too much, but just a small amount, and that started creating this disliking of the refugees. So it became there were still people in the town who loved and who helped the refugees, but because there were certain things that were happening to them, because of the refugees who left because of the war, that they started to feel resentment towards the refugees. And that, for me, when I sort of discovered that, was very important, that we wanted to speak to them as well. They need to be heard. Okay, why do they feel the way they do? And that's in the film. So we spoke to a couple of people who felt very, very opposite to anybody else who would want to help refugees, because in the beginning they were very helpful, but now they've changed their mind because of the situation. So that was the thought process. And even though the film strictly follows Ahmad, and you see the Moria camp through the eyes of Ahmad, and you meet every character through the eyes of Ahmad, it was important to get the other point of view. And we can all disagree with or disagree with it, but it's just to have that balance, that why were they in that situation, and why did they get to that point.
And Ahmed, what about you? While you were making the documentary and meeting these people and interviewing them or showing the circumstances, were there any preconceived notions that you had that changed after the making of this documentary?
In this documentary, we know that this will not change the situation immediately, but at least there is something that people should know out of Greece or out of this island. The world should know what's going on here, because many times when I was talking with people, they were asking me if this interview can change their situation, if they can go somewhere else after this interview. I was telling them, no, I'm sorry, you are not be able to. We are not be able to change the situation right now after this interview. It will take time, but I don't know. I don't know when, and it was actually very heartbreaking.
And I was reading some of the Guardian interviews as well. That image of that you're escaping a war zone and you're escaping the harsh conditions in your own country to arrive in a place, and you expect the conditions to be so much better. How are people coping with that dissonance between what they were expecting and what they arrive at?
Actually, the expectation of Europe is very high, and when people are getting out of the boat, and there were some volunteers, and they are welcoming people, they are welcoming us with smiling faces and hugging us, and at the first minutes you feel very calm, and you feel like, oh, finally I arrive here. And like 20 minutes later, they take you and they put you in a small camp, and you see around yourself, and you see the fences and the wire and everything, and the guards and the police. And after the day after, you go to Moria with and stay with 20 or 11, 10,000 people all together, and you see, oh, like, what's going on. For the first days, actually, you cannot realize, and where are you, and how long you will be here, and like the food, you see the food lines and the toilets and the bathroom, electricity, there is nothing actually there, and you don't know what's going on. And after some days, you realize, oh God, I will be here for a long time. And after you, yeah, it's a bit difficult to explain these things, this feeling.
What was your journey? What was that journey? How long did it take you to get there from Afghanistan?
Actually, from Afghanistan, I left Afghanistan 2016, in the middle of 2016, and I was 2 years in Turkey. And when I decided to go to Greece, I think I was lucky, because after one night I arrived in the island. But when I were talking with other people, it was so much difficult for them, mostly when they were trying to come through the land. And it was difficult, like 10 times, 5 times, 3 times. They were pushing back from Greek police, and they took their all belongings, like mobile, backpacks, everything, and they sent them back. And also, many times they tried through the sea, and finally, after 4 or 5 times, they arrived, and it's difficult. And also, like sometimes people get drowned, and
Jawad, when when creating a documentary, especially of this kind, when you want to show the story and the humanity of the people, what are some of the challenges? And I also want to know, in your eyes, what was the most important aspect of making an empathetic story for an audience?
Sure. I think part of that question I answered, but I'll mention it again. The biggest challenge was trying. We all of us have some sort of biases, right? Like we all feel about something in a certain way and something else in a certain way. So it was very important to sort of, and then making any documentary, if you want to be objective, you have to put your biases in the trash can, right? You just have to throw them away, and you have to come up with a complete fresh mind, and you have to empathize with people even if you disagree with them. So having said that, that's always a challenge, even with this film. Aside from being in Moria and seeing all the hell and people's emotions and what they were going through, that was a challenge as well. And it was just important for this film to hear those other point of views, like as difficult as it would be. So for example, we all know, I mean, that's why we're here, and we all know this because of news, as well as that, because certain policies of, you can blame United States, you can blame long history of politics throughout, in any country, for all the stuff that's happening. But at the end of the day, okay, so all that stuff has happened. The wars were done in Middle East, Arab Rising happened, and the Syria war started, and everybody started flooding. And 95%, this is just my guess, there's no factual number, I'm guessing 95%, 96% of the people genuinely came from the fear of war and, stuff that was going on at home. In one of the interviews that we did with a lady, she was a restaurant owner, like a Greek restaurant owner. And, I understood her point. She said there were people coming from Pakistan. There were people coming from countries where there's absolutely no war going on. And what that did is, I think with Moria camp, because now we live in information age with WhatsApp, everybody started hearing through news and stuff, there's a place where they're taking refugees. So even people whose lives were not necessarily that much in danger, they decided to take a boat to smuggle themselves out of there and get to Greece. And that's where the overcrowded situation became even more. I'm not saying that, everybody is like that, but there's always that small percentage. And that's where the locals became really, really upset. And that was a challenging part for me, to make sure that, and Ahmed and I had this discussion with each other, is that it was really important to show that, as much as we may disagree with it, but their point of view needs to be heard as well, because, they're people after all.
Definitely. When I look at this and then I think about, how do you take this? How do you take educating people and raising awareness about a situation like that,
Sure.
but also make it so that it mobilizes people to action? Was this your intention in making this, or was this a purely educational movie?
I think both Ahmed and I we were on the same page. It was, you kind of educate people and then the action happens. And what was important was, if you YouTube Moria camp, there's literally over 100 news videos on Moria camp in the last 5 years. So, okay, there's already stuff on it. How do we do this differently? That's where you bring in a protagonist, a character. And Ahmed was that person. So people relate to people when you watch movies or TV shows, people relate to characters, not necessarily situations. So when you feel connected to a character, then you'll feel for that character and that situation in a more powerful way than any other way. And that's what we both strive to do, is to connect people through Ahmed, and connect Moria to audiences through Ahmed.
And Ahmed, how comfortable were you in doing that? Have you ever done that before, or?
Actually, it's very difficult to make a movie about yourself. Mostly when you are in not in a good situation. Sometimes you are in, like, sorry, we are in the life television, but sometimes your mind is fucked up and you don't know what to do, and also you have to film yourself. And it's very difficult. Also, for me personally, it's very difficult to show myself or to see myself. But this was something that we should have done, and I'm very grateful about it.
Just to add to that.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Was it cathartic at all? Just did it help you process some of those feelings that must have been building up in being in that place? Did you feel like you were actually now doing something about it?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
That's fine. Jawad, please go ahead, and then we'll go back.
No, so basically what I was saying was, Ahmad mentioned about filming himself, and there were times that I wasn't with Ahmad, and I was back here, and because Ahmad had equipment and we left him with a camera and everything, and Ahmad would tell me, okay, this is what's going on. I'll check with him what's going on today. And I would be very reluctant to ask him because, I knew he was in a very terrible situation. And here I am talking about a movie. And I would tell him, can you, this happened. Okay, can you please film this? Can you document it? And he's such a good sport that he was okay with it. And I was very, very reluctant to ask because the last thing I wanted him to do was worry about a film more than worry about his own situation. So kudos to him for doing what he did.
Yeah.
So, and Ahmed, and both of you, I wanted to know if, so better sanitary prospects, livable conditions, medical assistance are just some of the focuses of the UN Human Rights Commission. So how do we make this happen? As we read that there's only one NGO, Doctors Without Borders there, where's everybody else and why aren't they there? What is stopping conditions from changing?
I think actually before Moria get born, there were too many organizations and most of them were trying to help. After Moria get born, or after when the fascist attacks started and the authority of Lesbos, they started to push back people. This organization, they decided to leave the Lesbos as a protest. They decided to leave Lesbos, and that's why before Moria get born, there were almost 1-2 organizations with 20 volunteers somehow, and most of organizations left Lesbos already. And after Moria get born, and this new campus started, and now the situation is very worse.
I think another element and that I personally felt was, and it's in the film, is that, and this is not just limited to Moria, it's every refugee camp in the world, but I think specifically with Moria, and what Ahmad is saying is accurate, that some nonprofit organizations left, but also what happened was, is that sadly we live in a world where even in some cases, some nonprofit organizations are there for money. That's just the fact. And a lot of nonprofit organizations start popping up. And and they're getting money from European Union or this government or that government, and they come there and they don't do much, whether it's intentionally or whether it's them being prevented from the local authorities. So that's another problem, that nonprofit organizations, majority of them are decent and good, but there's a good percentage of them that do it for money, and everything goes haywire from there. And this applies, in my research, I think that applies to every single refugee camp in the world, because the way it should be is that if you get money, it should go directly into the people, right? There shouldn't be any intermediary organization where there's administration fees going on. And I understand that that's just the world works, but unfortunately, when there's a big organization involved, messages get lost and money gets lost.
Definitely.
And also about the organization, the other biggest problem is right now here, as I'm working with one of these organizations, we are working on the street and we are seeing what people's need and what we can do for them. I think one of the biggest problem for this all organizations, non-profit organization, is there is not communication between them. And there is they don't use the same database. They don't there is they have the common they have the common services, but there is not a good communication between them, and like this nothing works well.
Providing services but not providing services that are actually needed.
Yes.
We see that in the Rohingya camps as well and other places as well. Now, a unique part of this entire story is that that half of the population of these camps are so young, and are they there with their parents? Are they orphans? What are some of the short term and the long term plans to help them move into a more stable situation?
I think the majority, from what I remember, a lot of the families do come together, and I think now, as of recently, and even last year, Germany has been taking a lot of refugees. Correct me, Ahmad, if I'm wrong, please. And as of recently, there were some families where they took the kids, not the families, to Germany, so that at least the kids can have, better life. But what that sort of leads to afterwards, how long they're separated from their parents, is another story altogether. But I think majority of the families do come together. If there is anybody that's alone, it's mainly men who come, who come first, and that's one of the reasons that in Moria, there was a lot of fights between refugees, because then there was Afghanis, there was Pakistanis, like there's this fractions and stuff, because nobody was working. They were just sitting around all day with nothing to do. So obviously, your mind is going to go a little crazy, and you're going to end up doing things. But that's what I think is the majority. It was like if they were alone, the majority of them were men.
Yeah, and also there were some teenagers, like minors under 18, and I think there were some safe zones for them, but also there were some adults that they claimed that they are minor, and they were using the real minors for dealing drugs or for sexual abuse or for something, and this kind of stuff.
This is and I'm just really when you watch the images, and I remember the drives that people had over here a couple of years ago, and I don't hear much of it anymore, where people were, the boats coming in and those scenes, and so people were raising funds for backpacks for babies, like the things that you can baby carriers and diapers, and a lot of people were flying out from here to hope to deliver them there as folks were coming in. And then it just seems like as it dies out from the news, it dies out from people's minds as well. So there aren't any more drives happening now here. That's my reaction, like what I'm seeing.
Right.
And the world news moves so quickly that's what spotlight is on there for a little bit of time. So what do we do now? What can somebody do once they watch your movie and understand what is happening there? What can be done?
Ahmad, do you want to go ahead, or do you want me to go?
Go ahead, and if I have something, I will.
Sure. I think the first thing that you can do is obviously spread the message to other people in your circle. So if you are not able to do anything, there might be 1 out of 10 people that might be able to do something, right? And the second is, if you're not able to do anything financially or emotionally or whatever, go to your representative, get them to your senator or local senator, have them make aware of this to the people and go to news and stuff. So that's the thing. And unfortunately, we live in a world where a news cycle is very short, and everything is based on a narrative that fits the media as well. So that worked really well in 2015 and 2016 and even 2017. But now, like you said, it's out of the news, and so okay. So how do you deal with it? And it becomes like we just get so entangled in our own realities. But I think we shouldn't think that, what am I going to do? I think we should think that, okay, even if we can't help financially or emotionally, maybe we can make the next 10 people, 20 people aware, or talk to the local politicians, go on social media, just talk to some, it will click somewhere for sure.
And so what have they told you, Ahmed? Like, how have they been in touch at all with the refugees there? Have they given a timeline?
The authorities. When you arrive in Lesbos, actually on that time until 2019, I think it was really easy to get in touch with them and also take your papers, everything, and make an interview date. For now, as I'm seeing people in the streets, like I see somebody that they don't have any paper, they are sick and they cannot go to the doctors. The doctors don't accept them. They don't have any accommodation. They don't have food. They don't have diapers, milk. And it is in these days with Corona situation, with lockdown, with everything is very complicated. Now you just have to call them by Skype, and most of the time they are not picking up. And I see many people that their interview is in 2023 and they come 2-3 years ago. Like, there is some people that they even don't have paper since 2 years ago because they came through the land. And actually it is it's different per person and per cases and where you came from. Like when you landed, you came through the islands or you came through the land. It's all dependent on this kind of stuff, but yeah, it's different.
I have a question. Many of the people who come in are Muslims. Have people bonded over that, or or you find that is not something that people are bonding over their faith?
I think most, like the majority of these refugees, most are Muslims, and the majority of people who are coming to help are like non-Muslims. Like we have Israeli schools in Moria, the Israel government who are fighting against Syria and Palestine, and they have a school and teach Arab kids. And it is like they don't think about this kind of stuff when they are coming to help in Lesbos, or they are helping to refugees. Yes.
And I do think
there
that
are no Muslims who help Muslims here. I haven't seen. I just see one guy he came from Palestine, and he was giving food for the people who are praying, like on Fridays, but not helping others. It was so.
And I think there is, to add to Ahmed, I know of one organization. It's been a while. I forget the name. They're Jewish based and they're Americans, and they have helped ridiculous. That's all they do. They help, atrocities around the world, and they've contributed quite a bit over there as well. But Ahmed, I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong. When I was there, I think people, even if they're Muslims, because they are in such a horrendous situation that they don't have time to think about faith, religion, because they're in the morning, they get up at 6 a.m. to stand up in the food line. It takes them 3 hours to get a piece of cake and a water, right? And then they go back, and then they come back for the lunch line, and then a dinner line, and then it's sleeping. Ahmed, were there a lot of people who were praying there? I mean, I don't remember seeing anybody, but it was a big percentage, or was it small?
Like mostly during the Friday, there were there was a mosque in Moria camp, and
Right.
people were praying there. But I think there were people 5 times per day. They were praying, but not a lot of people actually.
Yeah.
Also, if I let me correct myself, there is a Pakistani organization. There were a Pakistani organization in Lesbos who were distributing foods and clothes. Like it was very small and it wasn't so big. And also, there are some Muslims who are volunteering there, but it is like 0.0001%. It's like this, and you cannot count them.
Jawad, please share with us as we wind down the hour what you're planning to exhibit this the documentary in Canada. What are your plans for that? Where can people watch it?
Sure. So right now we're going through a festival route. So we had the film premiere at Atlantic International Film Festival. It was just played last week at Milton Film Festival, which is part of Toronto International Film Festival circuit. And we're just awaiting more news of other festivals throughout Europe and North America. But right now it's more so trying to, what happens is, just to kind of educate people, is that you go through festival and you hope for distributors to come and sort of do an acquisition of your film and say, we're going to distribute it and take it and whatnot. So that's what we're sort of counting on. And maybe during the festival process somebody might approach us, and we are in talks with some networks in Europe as well as in Canada to see if we can find some sort of a release. But if anybody is interested, I think you guys gave away the Facebook page and the Twitter handles. They can keep looking for updates there.
What about in lockdown, since a lot of people are just at home, and have you approached Netflix or Hulu or any of these sort of, or do they only do their own sort of documentaries?
Right. No, they do their own, but they do acquisition. But again, it has to go through. It has to go through a festival circuit first. Like it's just one of those rules and processes where distributors are always hunting for good content. And I mean, it can't just be any content. It has to be really, really good. And based on the people who have seen the film at festivals and at private screenings, European Union did a couple of private screenings just in the beginning of COVID. The response has been incredible. Everybody was kind of educated, but at the same time, from a standpoint of production and film, it was very engaging for them to watch. So we're counting on that. We're hoping that sort of comes through. And for an average film to go through festival and find distribution, it's like almost like a minimum a year-long time. So we're kind of in the middle of it right now.
Okay. Well, good luck to you, both of you, and Ahmed, may Allah make it easy for you. It's we can do what we can from our platform in getting your story out. And I do hope that our prayers, somebody's prayers, those of who are listening, will reach out. We've put out Ahmed's Twitter handle, and let him know. I'm going through it. Just knowing that people are supporting you and rooting for you can be. Alhamdulillah. Well, thank you so much, Jawad, for being here and for making movies like this. You have another movie on Dr. Gulshan Abbas, and we've interviewed her sister. We work with her sister here. The Save Uyghur campaign does work with the Campaign for Uyghurs. So, hopefully, can't wait to watch that one when that comes out. So thank you all for being here. And just wanted to remind our audience that February 5th is Kashmir Solidarity Day, and we will be having a rally on at 11 o'clock right here on Muslim Network TV, and you can watch it on Facebook, on YouTube channel, as always. Do join in. You can find the registration link. It'll be shared underneath this page. So we hope to see you all on Friday at 11 Eastern Standard Time.